Welcome to the College Years Podcast. I'm Cam. We're doing something a little different. Jake Smith is a rising freshman at Howard University, and he's sitting down with Kenny White, a Howard alum, and they're going to be talking about navigating new spaces. It's a really cool opportunity to connect the two because of their similarities, and I want to encourage you all to find your own connections and your own similarities with other adults in your life. We know how important it is to have helpful, trusted adults in your life, and this is a really good example of that. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Jake and Kenny for another episode of the College Years Podcast. Enjoy.
How y'all doing? I'm Jake Smith. I'm a rising freshman at Howard University, and with me, today I got a Y2Y alumni and Howard alumnus. I think that's how you say it. Kenny White. But no, I got Kenny White with me, and got a couple questions, just like rapid fire questions. We can just go through them, and then we'll get into more of a conversational kind of situation. Does that sound good to you?
Great.
Right. All right.
Give me a nickname.
Right. What high school did you go to?
I graduated from Beechcroft. I went to Hartley for like a stint, but then graduated from Beechcroft.
Kind of stuff. How did you get involved with like youth to youth?
So my ninth grade year, one of my best friends who went to Hartley, she had went to, I think it was the Valentine's Day her freshman year at UT Youth. And she was like, oh my God, I had so much fun. You should come with me. And so I came the following week, and then actually I think I became more active in UT Youth than she did. But outside of UT Youth, then I was like involved in like another prevention group. So UT Youth was really dope. Definitely like my piece, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of cool because I got involved the week before the Valentine's. Like I set up, it was funny though because I set up for the Valentine's, but I had work the next week because it was just like out of the blue. So like. None of my work, I didn't get to enjoy any of it or anything like that, but no, I got them right around the same time as well. What is, like with YouTube and all that kind of stuff, what's like your favorite memory, like from like going through with it? Because you said you started pretty early in high school,
Conference.
I
think actually conference, my first conference was probably like my favorite, and then my second one was when I came back as adult staff. But from ninth grade, I guess from 1998 through 2005, I was coming back to conferences.
Okay, that's dope. So how you adults? Was that when you adult staff for that long?
I became adult staff in 2003.
Oh wow, that's crazy. And how long did you do that for?
I did that for like about 3 years.
That's dope. Yeah. That's dope. I actually thought about coming out and doing that kind of thing. No, there's like some like just steps you took like after you graduated. Like what was like the first thing you did after graduation from Beechcroft and all that?
So I knew I had to go to college. College was a requirement in my house. I just wasn't ready. So my father was an Army recruiter, and he had told me, hey, I know you want to go to college, but I know you would love to do a gap year. So joined the Air Force Reserves, did that for a year. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to go to Howard.
HU!
You know?
Hey, that's what I'm
talking
about.
Since I was 8 years old, I knew I wanted to go to a HBCU.
That's super dope.
There used to be a show called A Different World.
Don't even. Oh my gosh, I've just started watching all that. Like I'm on like the second season at the moment. So you said like A Different World was like a big motivator for you to go to HBCU.
Yep, at the age of 8. So I'm 38
crazy.
years old.
Yeah.
So at the age of 8, I knew I was going to a HBCU.
That's so dope. So like getting from that, I feel like the reason like how like this connection like between like me and you, I feel like a big thing of why this kind of thing works. That we feel like we both have worked into like new spaces, that kind of thing, like such as Y2Y. That's a whole new different territory, and then you going right from that to the military, like that's a big jump, and then right to that from living in Columbus, Ohio, north side of Columbus, going to DC and a whole new just trajectory. And like I feel like that's the biggest reason why we have like a lot of similarities in that kind of part. Like me going into like the same kind of area. So try to just kind of run me through how you went from the military to like school to that.
So I'm actually glad I did that gap year. And this was a gap year before like the Obamas made the term gap year popular. And so during that year, it allowed me just to be like really focused. And because I think if I would have went to Howard straight out of high school, I probably would have like been either there for 5 years or I probably would have like failed out.
Really?
Because of just like the discipline that the military kind of gave me. But going into like a big city like DC, it was like, oh my God, homecoming and just the social dynamic that Howard actually gave, was just like really spectacular. But by the time I arrived there at 19 years old, I was definitely focused and knew what the end goal was. And then plus taking that year off, I realized I had some friends who I had actually a really good friend who went to Morehouse, and he didn't return his second year. And so just like seeing some of my friends who had tried to go off to school and it just didn't work out for them, I was like, yeah, this is not going to be me. I'm not coming back. No offense to those friends who did that, but I was like, yeah, I'm not coming back.
No, I get that. That's awesome. So with like going to Howard kind of stuff, I know Howard in general. I've done quite a bit of research. Like as soon as like Howard was my number one for like so long. I actually didn't even. I actually didn't even know
that Kevin was just like, oh yeah, like I should have been talking to you like one.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is for me is personally I like have just kind of a different situation, a different bringing up. I live even to this day. I've lived in Pickaway County. South of Columbus.
I don't even know where that's at.
Exactly. Okay. That's the whole point. Yeah. In the boonies. Yep. Like in the country. Lived there my whole life. And I like going into YouTube was like a real big thing for me personally because it got me into an area where more people actually like thought like me and looked like me, that kind of thing. Before YouTube, I wasn't in the room with more than 5 or 6 black people in my life. I was 16 or 17 coming up. Yeah. So that was a big thing for me. It's obviously a big thing for you, just like to do like the drug free. Like that's a huge thing because in high school it's not really like the main talk or anything like that. It's definitely outside, but I feel like speak on like more of what kind of safe space that kind of gave you in that kind of situation.
It's crazy. Like thinking about 2021. If I was a high school student, just I don't want to say the temptations, but you all are dealing with things that my peer group didn't have to deal with. Mm-hmm. Speaking about it from the legalization of marijuana, and it just seemed like it's everywhere. And it's,
absolutely.
Like back in the day, you were pretty much like a rebel child if you were actually doing that. But now it's like, oh yeah, everyone does it because it's like on TV, it's on social media. You all dealing with the social media aspect of people just like blowing up and things like that. So definitely a different dynamic. For me, the reason why I chose to be drug free in high school, my friend group, like we weren't like the rebels or like I wasn't like trying to. I thought it was important to like have a healthy lifestyle, and then I kind of thought I wanted to go into the military at one point. So knowing about like just like using drugs and stuff of that nature, so that's the reason why I kind of chose that. But I just commend everyone, especially in your group, of like the temptations that are out there.
No, yeah, absolutely. Like you said, especially with like the age when and that kind of part with. It's everywhere. You know what I'm saying? You see everywhere. You have social media and like it's like that like thing. So it's definitely, I feel like it's definitely a big part of today's like generation in general on that kind of part. But from that, so you going from youth to youth, you said you always wanted to live like a healthy lifestyle. I'm definitely the same way. Like I have such a guilty conscience. I can't do anything like bad. Like it eats me up. So like that's why, that's a big reason why I just don't do anything. And that's why youth to youth is super great for me. But from youth to youth, what kind of impact did that have, for even going through the military and then going to Howard after the fact?
So the reason I'm a financial contributor to youth now is taking away the positive things that UT taught me, like public speaking and being able to be in a diverse crowd. Like when I was in high school or Beechcroft, we were about 60%, 70% black at the time. Now it's like 90%. But it was diverse, but not as diverse of, having like close friends who were definitely of different ethnic groups and different social economical backgrounds. I think UT Youth was a great melting pot of, people who were like from like extreme hood to like people who were like extreme preppy, so it was like having that balance. But I think UT Youth kind of taught me to be able to walk into a group and being able to interact with multiple personalities. And when I think about Howard or your experience that you're about to experience at Howard, it's probably going to be really similar.
Yeah.
I remember I had friends who were actually my sophomore year. My friend Sasha, who's an actress out in LA, she literally like came from like the Huxtable family. Like her father was like a really like big doctor out out in LA. And then like her roommate was like from like the projects in Atlanta, and like the two of them, living together for that first year, it's like you just see you see highs and lows, and just being able to come together, and then also realizing like that just because people may look like you, they don't necessarily have the same thought process, and that it's okay for you to listen to Taylor Swift, or but then it's also that you're just like really really diverse, and I think you've kind of exposes that mindset that, hey, it's okay to be different, and going into a setting like Howard, you're going to be different. But then you also have to just take the positives of that, hey, we are not a monolithic society.
Yeah, I mean, I've always thought about, I've had like, obviously that's kind of talked about like mine coming up and all that kind of stuff. I don't have that, what's the word? Just that exposure, especially like I grew up in a very white household, and like that's all I have at that point. So like the exposure to HBCUs and that kind of idea, like I guess it's completely different coming from Columbus regardless, but like to not have any of that experience at all, that's something that's really, I feel like the biggest thing is like it's a whole new culture. Like being in DC in general, but then Howard, being at HBCU, I think it's a completely, like, so many levels to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And are you biracial?
Yeah. So my dad's black and my mom's white. But I live with my mom and I live with my mom's boyfriend. So like I don't get any of that side. You know what I'm saying? So like going to school, one in DC in general, super black, big black population, and then going to an HBCU where like everybody's there. Like I was actually the only black guy graduating in my class this year. In my whole, I think there was like 3 other girls, but like it's that minimal.
Right.
So going to HBCU was super, super new and super just different for me, I guess.
How did you pick Howard?
Picking Howard was super quick, but like it felt like such a long process because I talked to my aunt and I was talking about law school, and I'm still kind of maybe on that route as well. And she mentioned Howard, and I didn't even know it was HBCU. Like this was like a month before application season, and I was like, I didn't know what this whole thing was, and I looked it up, and very quickly I became obsessed with the whole idea of Howard. Did so much research, watched so many videos. I'm like, I felt I was already a student at that point. I didn't even apply, and I was like, I need to go here, and it was crazy because it gave me motivation to do things, and I felt like if I didn't do this extra thing, it wouldn't work out. I'm like, I don't deserve it at that point. Come to find out, I actually applied early decision. Come to find out, regular decision was only 8% accepted because like so big with Kamala Harris and all that kind of stuff. So it was. I'm just happy I applied early, very very much so. Yeah,
Right.
It wasn't really an option. I mean, it wasn't really a decision for me. I applied to NCAT as well in North Carolina, and I also applied to Cincinnati and Kent State. But like, if I got into Howard, there wasn't like going to be a different decision for me. But yeah, but with going to school, especially in just a different area, like I was saying before, like new spaces. You mentioned a lot about leadership organizations, or like kind of part in general, whether it's HBCU or not. What kind of organizations in general, more of a general basis, do you think that you would recommend for people, especially even if it's like people that are going to new space that haven't been in that kind of area before?
I think it's important to pick organizations that you have a passion for, or pick causes that you have a passion for.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think like my freshman year, like I said, I was in the Ohio Club. I remember I used to go to chapel service like every. They used to have like a noonday chapel. Like on Wednesdays, I would do that occasionally. I was never a chapel assistant, but I feel like I probably would have fit in like really well with that. But I just didn't do that. I already recommend it for yourself, like doing GOD or probably Freshman Leadership Academy. I'm trying to think of the other organizations I was a part of. How I got into student government. I was a part of. Oh, I guess what's your major going to be?
That's one of the things that's kind of like opening at the moment. Right now, my major is sociology because it might be more political science area. I want to do law, but I don't really for sure know like what route I want to go with that. But also talk about journalism and all that kind of stuff. So what was yours?
Success. I mean, joking. That's always
that's sweet.
But no, I was an advertising major. So
Okay.
I was a part of the.
I can tell.
Right. Yeah, I was a part of the School of Communications.
Okay.
So advertising. So when I took that year off, I was like, oh yeah, I think I want to go into like either like public relations. There was a movie called What Women Want. I think it came out in like 2000. And I was like, oh, he's like an advertising, like this like big guy, and I would love to do that. So I chose So I chose PR, and then realized I liked the advertising track a little bit more. But it was pretty much just the exact same curriculum until like my senior year, but just like the thought process. And then I chose logistics in the military, so I'm a logistician in the military, and because I, at the time, wanted to become an event planner since I was doing programs for student government. And actually, when you go to Howard, you're going to hear this thing called First Fridays, which like student government is supposed to be like in the punch out, and so it's just mean like they're accessible. And that was actually like a program that I came up with.
You came up with
yeah.
That's so dope.
So and it blew me away. About 4 years ago, I was on Howard's campus doing a college, doing a tour with like my little cousins, and like the student ambassador, like I said, I was a student ambassador. She's like walking around. She's like, "Oh yeah, like we have like First Fridays and the punch out." I was like, "Oh, actually, like I created that."
Yeah.
So it's
very involved. Like they take those. That's super dope.
Right, and I think that's just like the pride from Howard. I mean, and like the thing is, not everyone's going to be in student government. There's going to be some people who don't even remember like who the presidents were of student government at the time. But that was just like the track record, or that was the trajectory I went on. My friend Conrad Woody, who graduated from Bishop Hartley, it had to be my sophomore year at Howard. He decided to run for president of College of Arts and Sciences.
And it's college I'm in. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sociology. So, and I was in the School of C, and he was like, "Hey, like I'm trying to like draft up my team. Would you mind like working on my team?" I was like, "Okay, cool." And so he ended up winning and becoming the president of College of Arts and Sciences. And so then the next trajectory is become president of HUSA, Howard University Student Association. And so then I worked on that campaign as well. And then so with me working on that campaign, that's when he brought me in to be co-programs director. Coming in, I was like, oh yeah, I think that we should definitely have, and I can always like come up with ideas and events easily. So I was like, yeah, we should definitely do like First Fridays because his campaign or his platform was to make student government a little bit more accessible. And so we straight up, I was like, all right, yeah, we can definitely do this. Let's have like a party in the punch out, like with student government and just like people to come up. So like that's how that was like birthed. And then I know the Neo Stroll is like still going on at Howard, but it's kind of morphed into a different dynamic. But it's basically like all of the new Greeks who are coming out. It's like an opportunity for them to stroll and coming out. So I remember that was like something else I had brought to it. But again, going back to how I got involved in student government was Conrad asked me to be a part of his team, and from there, I was able to like form other. Well, once he won, he was able to place me on his administration.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, I thought it was cool. What part when you mentioned you said your major, and you said like how you come up with that and that kind of thing. I thought it was a cool idea because like. Well, at least the major I was in now, what kind of came up from a movie as well. I don't know if did you watch Just Mercy?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's probably my top movie, like at least top 2 movie at the moment. But that made me want to do civil rights and that kind of stuff. But one thing I also pointed out when you said that was you said you went to public relations, but then you turned into advertising and all that kind of stuff. you being able to like switch, like that's the thing that I have been, I don't know, worried about a little bit is like picking the wrong major or like doing something and not knowing exactly what I want to do on that part as well. I thought it was cool to like see how you didn't know from the get. You know what I'm saying? Like you thought you had an idea, but then it kind of turned into something else. And even with that, knowing that like you didn't just get your degree and move on, like you were very involved. Like it wasn't you just went to school. Like you changed how Howard works at this point. I didn't know any of that like prior. I thought that's super cool knowing that, especially at a place so progressive as Howard, that you can go to school and get a great education, but also like change the way it works in that kind of way as well.
That's the key for me, thinking about the HBCU experience, or specifically thinking about the Howard experience.
Yeah.
You make it what you want to make it. And so I'm glad that I had, because I was active in ROTC as well. And so
At Howard, right?
Howard,
Yeah.
Yep. So active on campus, active in ROTC, and then also was out in these streets in DC. And like I was like exploring DC and realized that my DC experience, I didn't want it just to be Howard. I wanted it to be the DC experience. And so many students I knew, their lives was only centered around Howard.
In the Howard bubble. Yeah.
Right. Where I was out, like I met friends from like Georgetown or George Washington. I was actually going out to College Park, and it's just like I had a very different DC experience than some of my peers. But you really do make Howard what you want it to be. There's going to be some people that's going to instantly love Howard. They're going to get on the campus and they're like, this is the best decision I made. And then there's going to be some people that absolutely hate it. They don't like the congestion of DC. They're going to say that, oh, these are just like HBCU problems and I just don't want to do this. I'm spending so much money, which there's some truth to that. But then, so I used to teach at UNC Charlotte, and I realized that when people say like, oh, the administration building is a mess. I'm like, no, and it's a mess because it's HBCU. No, there are PWIs that have the exact same problems and difficulties that HBCUs have. So administration, it depends on where you go. There's going to be some people that just hate it because they feel like they can't find the right people that look like them or being able to relate.
Yeah. It's gonna be a tough. It's gotta be a tough situation to be in. Absolutely.
Right, but then any school you go to, like I can easily go to the Ohio State and worry about trying to fit in or not finding my own niche. But what have you done? Are you just sitting in your room playing video games, or are you actually thoroughly out enjoying or seeing what the culture is? One of the things I tell members of like people who are trying to join my fraternity, like fraternity life, you have this idea that's all about brotherhood or it's all about community service. And when you come in and you don't find that, then you're instantly turned away. But you have to make these things how you want to make it. So if you're joining a fraternity to talk about brotherhood, what are you doing to be brotherly? Or if you're joining this organization for community service, all right, what community service ideas are you bringing to the organization?
Yeah.
So from a Howard experience, if you're trying to live the Howard experience, realize it's more than just playing video games in your dorm room, but then, and there's a social aspect. I think college, the academics at Howard are great. The social aspect of Howard is great. But I think the real reason why people go to college, unless you're trying to become an engineer or a doctor, I think there's a networking aspect, and being able to name drop, or like the people that you're interacting with are in 10, 15 years from now, the power that you all have, and to be able to, call, you're in LA and like, oh yeah, I want to go hang out on this movie set. Oh wait, who do I know? One of my friends today just posted that they lost their passport. They have an international itinerary in 3 weeks. Who of my DMV friends have access to the passport office in DC? And just your network is so large that you're able to utilize that. And so that kind of starts your freshman year. Just the people that you run into and the relationships that you build.
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned the part, a really cool part that I was hoping to get to was the was the Greek aspect, because you did pledge. Would you pledge Alpha Phi Alpha?
Yes, I am a member of Alpha
You
Phi
are?
Fraternity Incorporated.
Okay, gotcha.
However, I didn't do it at Howard.
You did? Okay,
Yeah.
I didn't know that. So how did that? So could you run through that a little bit?
So I just did not do it at Howard. But it was something that I knew I always wanted to do, and
Okay.
so I actually became a member in a grad chapter in Philadelphia.
That's so.
But it's funny though because Howard. So Alpha's at Howard is beta chapter. It's a single letter chapter. I mean, so single letter chapters meaning it's an old chapter.
Yeah.
Howard's chapter was founded in 1907, but then for my grad chapter that I pledged through was founded in 1914, and so. Yes, I wasn't able to make it at Howard, but it's still cool for me to show up with my single letter.
No, yeah, absolutely. That's super dope. So, could you kind of like you mentioned you did. I guess that's a little different experiences when it is a grad chapter because like you're not actually going through school with it. But so I guess that's a more of a unique experience that you've had. So could you kind of run through what kind of experience that gave you being able to still be part of this great Greek but actually have a more of a after college kind of experience with it?
Yeah, so what I tell at the end of the day, like when people look at Greek life, I say a brother is a brother is a brother. It doesn't matter how you went through that process.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like there is still aims and beliefs that we all have, and so depending on how that person came through, we have to look at each other as the same. But there is Alpha. We would love to say that we are a non-pledging, non-hazing organization, which I will definitely concur. But my process, so like let's say if you were studying at Howard to become an Alpha, like when you are going through that process, you can easily, skip class. Like, we were out late last night, and so I'm going to go ahead and not go to this 9 a.m. Psych class.
Yeah.
And for me, I didn't have that luxury of saying, "Yep, I'm not going to show up to work. Work pays the bills." So
Right, yeah.
I just think that so my process was slightly different, and then plus like I wasn't a struggling college student like trying to pay for these dues. I was a whole professional, when I went through the process. So, hey, we need you to randomly go pick up this food for us. Okay, cool. Like, here goes my Amex. Like, that's not,
Yeah.
like, I didn't have to, like, there was just different struggles, but then there was also different luxuries I had, too. So, it was just very different.
No, I get that. That's sweet. With, like, knowing, like, from, like, obviously going through Y2Y and being in that same kind of space and going to Howard and then also having that, idea of like being part of that Greek, having that brotherhood from, or whatever that looks like for you as well. Especially people that you like probably still talk to nowadays. What kind of thing, especially as someone like even my position or like even a little younger, what would be the biggest piece of advice you think that you would give, or something you wish you would have known like beforehand that would like kind of help someone's experience?
I would say before you make any major decisions, do your research. And look at and when you're basing that research, making sure that you're looking past that one experience. So like for you choosing Howard, it's like, oh yeah, I'm only going to Howard because like all of my friends from my high school is going to Howard. Yeah. No, like, well, think about it, like if your friends leave, do you still want to be at Howard? And I would say that's similar to like even like Greek organizations that sometimes I call him my cousin. He was my mentee, but he keeps making bad choices in life, and I was like, I can't endorse this. I love you dearly, but I'm going to call you my cousin because I can't have you out here saying that this is my mentee, and they're like, how do you keep making these decisions? I'll tell you the 3 decisions that he made. I would say the first one was they paired me up. He was he was in a mentoring program when he was in high school.
He was in high school. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. And so they paired us up because he wanted to go to HBCU and he also wanted to do ROTC at a HBCU. Cool, you have somebody who went to Howard who, it just makes sense. So first mistake, he chose Hampton, and I was like, and then he chose Army ROTC, and I was like, bruh, and then he chose the wrong Greek organization. I was like, that's where I draw the line. Like nope, cousin, hey little cousin.
No, I guess that's definitely Well, especially having like you said, like you were a mentor in that kind of part, and especially being that kind of area, like those things not working out in the end, like you like probably had like such high hopes when it came to like yeah,
High hopes.
yeah, right, and like just things didn't work out, and like I guess that's part of life, and getting into that, just getting into those new spaces, like though it's always going to be a hard transition, or even it could be an easy transition, but something is going to be hard. I know, even especially when we talk about Howard, people always say that it's like there's like this this beautiful struggle that you're going to go through. It's like it's going to be hard, but like you're going to come out a lot better at the end, and just go in new spaces in general. Like what kind of insight do you think would be the best advice you can get when it comes to going to new spaces in general?
I think about being a brand new participant at Youth to Youth International Conference.
Yeah.
And you're sitting in the auditorium, and you see all these crazy people jumping around talking about dexterity check or whatever that may be. And I was like, yeah, it's cool to be drug free. What? You sure you're not on drugs? Like, you look like you're on coke. But like, and then at the end of the week, being infected by that same momentum.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, like, I don't know what I just did, but this is truly amazing. And I would say going into every experience like that, you might go in judging it a little, but then after a while you start to drink the Kool-Aid, and then you start to adapt, and then all of a sudden now you're on stage doing energizers. I think that's similar to my experience like in the military. Like, I came in like, what the heck is going on? This is a shock. And then after a couple nights or a couple weeks, becoming used to it, and then being able to be the face of it. Mm-hmm. Howard is the exact same. You know, you're going to go in. Some people are natural or going to naturally fit into it, and then there's going to be some people that's going to take a little bit more time to get acclimated to it. But then at the end of the day, it's like, oh yeah, this is something that I conquered, or this is something that I did that was life changing. And it's really just about your mindset. I also think it's about muscle memory. At 38 years old, I realized that I'm thankful for the struggles that I've gone through, because when those struggles have come back into my life or something similar, I'm like, oh yeah, I've done this before. You know, like, I had
it's easy at that point, yeah.
Right. And it's that muscle memory. And so I think that's one of the parts about of life and being successful, and then just going into things just with an open mind, and then remembering the things that you can be able to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate all of the great advice, jokes, and insight that you have been able to give today, and hopefully be able to take away the best part of those kind of things. And I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
I hope you all found this episode as helpful as I have, as I will also be navigating new spaces of my own. Over the past 6 years, Youth to Youth has been a space that I can learn and grow and connect with young people and adults from all walks of life. Thank you to all the young people and adults who believed in me and given me opportunities that I'm forever grateful for. Here's to 3 more college years.